You're watching Talking About Orcs.
So for my next 6th edition overview, we're going to be talking about the boys and how they have changed in 6th edition. And they have changed a lot, and unfortunately most of it is not for the better. Um, let's start with cover saves. You know, Orcs depend really on cover saves. That's part of what made them really good in 4th, is being able to get that 4+ cover save a lot more often than not. And unfortunately, pretty much all the cover saves that matter is 5+. The intervening models is a 5+ cover save. So the boys behind the front line get the same 5+. Area trains a 5+. Wrecks are 5+. So pretty much there's not a whole lot of benefit from terrain that we're going to get as like there was in 4th edition. So pretty much if you're running a lot of mobs of orcs, foot orcs, and you haven't been running a KFF, I would definitely consider start doing it. And the reason why, more than anything else, is that cover saves are no longer determined on a unit basis, but on a model basis. So if you have guys out in front, they're not going to get any cover save, no matter how many guys you have behind them in cover. But with the KFF, of course, it doesn't matter because they all get cover saves no matter what. So I think cover KFF is going to be a lot more important if you're running Port Orcs than ever before. They're just kind of nice because you can get bigger benefits from going to ground. And of course, night fight's going to be really nice with the KFF getting +1 and +2. But unfortunately, fearless units can't go to ground. So until you start getting down to 10 models or less, you can't go to ground voluntarily, even if you wanted to. So that's really going to be a big change, I think, is not being able to go to ground when fearless. And of course the 5+ cover saves in general. So, you know, I have, especially now if you play 2,000 points, you get 2 Force Orcs, you can get, you know, a War Boss and 2 KFF mechs if you want to. Heck, even 3 KFF mechs. Just to make sure everybody gets cover. So cover is going to be a big issue, and I found out that in the games I've played and I've seen is that infantry models just simply die a little easier than they did before. It's not significantly easier, but trying to get cover is just hard, or a decent cover save is just hard. Let's see. Assaults are so much different now. There's a lot of things to consider when talking about boys in assault. Of course, the first one is a charge range. Charge range is always a maximum of 18 inches every game, every turn now, every time. And when you gain fleet from your WA, you of course get to reroll dice, which is good. And it's one or both of the dice, or all 3 if you're going through terrain or something like that. So that's the nice thing about when you do use fleet. You do get those rerolls. Unfortunately, the Prophet of War and the FAC still only affects the run move. It doesn't affect the assault move. So the best you can do is gain fleet. I was really hoping for an automatic 12-inch charge with Prophet of War, but that didn't happen. You get just a 6-inch run, which is like, why bother? So even Gazgi was nerfed a little bit, but only a little bit. This fleet is actually really good. People keep saying that fleet was heavily nerfed, but it really wasn't. I mean, being able to roll 1 or both. Say if you roll a 6 and a 1 for your charge distance, you can choose to only roll the 1. You don't have to re-roll that 6. So fleet is still really good. You still get the same exact charge distance of 18 inches you did before. You just don't get a charge range of 24, which would happen if you could fleet charge after running. So what happens in the assault phase? There are lots of things to think about, and that is the pile-ins are done at initiative. So what's going to happen is you're going to assault or get assaulted, and then all the models in base contact are going to die first, and then the ones beyond that. And then when you get down to initiative 2, then all your boys pile in. You're going to get 3-inch pile in, and anyone in base or within 2 inches of the model in base, they get to swing. There's still a chance if you take massive casualties that you're not going to get to swing at all, but it's probably not going to happen. It might happen against purifiers because they're going to clear out the models in base first, and of course then they're not going to be able to swing at anything either. So you're going to lose a lot of so when you lose your models, and they're going to be piling in when it's time for their turn to swing. Which means, of course, the knob's going to be piling in initiative 1. Let's see this. The biggest change, of course, is going to be the change to Furious Charge, which is a really tough cookie to swallow. It must be even worse for Blood Angels, but Furious Charge right here. A turn which a model is special charges and value is +1 strength. A model that has made a disordered charge receives no benefit from Furious Charge. Disordered charge, of course, is when you charge multiple models, multiple units, multi-charge. So when you charge two or more units, you don't gain a +1 strength and you don't gain a +1 attack. So charging, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to charge 2 units, especially if both those units can overwatch you. So that's definitely something to consider. I would, the bread and butter of the boys was going up in a massive formation, charging in 2 or 3 models at once, getting some hits on the vehicle, maybe taking out the vehicle while doing some damage to the unit. But that's just not going to happen anymore. So that's really a shame. Really takes a lot of wind out of our sails with this Furious Charge change and the multi-assault change. So that's about it. This is my complaining about Furious Charge. Knobs. Let's talk about knobs. Oh, knobs. Knobs are going to be... Before, knobs were like a no-brainer. It was said that the boys were 30 ablative or 29 ablative wounds for a power fist, and that's just not going to happen anymore. Let's not something in here. And the reason for that is challenges. Challenges are really going to be... I think really challenges were pretty badly written in this edition. But I won't get into that. The knob can get challenged and taken out pretty easily, especially with any sort of killy character that has power weapons. Which means you're going to lose your power fist attacks quite often if you're going against something with a decent independent character or whatnot. So there's a lot to be said for... Knobs are not the no-brainer they used to be in a boys unit. Because if you don't have a character, then of course you can't get challenged. So I might even consider keeping knobs cheaper, maybe giving them the big chopper option. Seems a little more intriguing than it did when it was before. Something just to keep the knob a little cheaper. Boss pulls are still good. That way, you're not worried about losing the power fist attacks. If someone gets challenged, you just say, "No, I'm declining. The knob's going away." And you can still use the boss pull. And you can't use the knob's leadership, but it doesn't matter because all the models have the same leadership anyway, and because of the mob rule. But you still get to use the boss pull because it says you can't use his leadership. But of course, here's the challenges. Let's see. Refusing a challenge. His leadership cannot be used by the rest of the unit for the remainder of the phase. It doesn't say anything about boss pulls. Facts doesn't say anything about boss pulls. So, if you do get run down, you can still use the boss pull. You just won't use his leadership, which of course, as I said, doesn't matter because everyone has the same leadership all the time anyway. So keeping your knob to a 20-point upgrade instead of a 45-point upgrade, or 35-point upgrade, 40-point upgrade, sorry, isn't as bad as it once was. I mean, it was just, yeah. Or maybe you're not taking a knob in certain units, depending on what you're going to do with them. But if you do take a knob, I would probably almost always take heavy armor now. Whereas before it was, some people liked it, some people don't. I would, with the way the wound allocation is and the lookout serves, I would definitely go with heavy armor almost every time, no matter which way you go on the knob. Either you go with power fist or a big choppa, or no weapons at all, no upgrades at all. Heck, you could even give your knob a shoot in a shooter boys squad since you're not going to be changing it out for a power fist. Just an idea. Anyway, so that's where we're going about knobs. Knobs kind of got taken down a notch. let's talk Overwatch. Overwatch is going to be both a great boon and a great bust for the Orc boys, because that means everything they charge is going to get a shooting at them. But then on the plus side to that is everything that charges us, they're going to get shot at too. So it's both good and bad. And so things hitting on sixes, unless they have just an actually massive volume of fire, they're really not going to be killing enough orcs to worry about, especially if you keep the KFF in range. Because of course, because the shooting, the Overwatch happens before they move at all, which means the Overwatch happens while you can still be in range of the KFF, even before you roll your charge systems. The Overwatch happens. So, of course, if someone's going to be charging us, they get Overwatched, which is, depending on which kind of boys you have, could be very bad for them. So now let's talk about the shooters versus sluggers. And in this edition, shooters only got better, sluggers only got worse, unfortunately. Slugger boys, they have that extra attack, but I said they lose the initiative, they lose the strength on the multi-charge, they can't overwatch as effectively, they can't shoot as effectively. And so getting beat up on things like guardsmen first is going to really suck. But so I don't think slugger boys are going to be. I mean, even before there's a lot of arguments, but shooter boys were almost clearly better, and now in 6th edition, that difference I think has widened more than ever before. The shooter boys just have the advantage of the shooting, the overwatching with 50 strength 4 shots. Basically, what happens is the shooters become 2 attacks at basically weapon skill 1 at initiative 11. You can think of it that way. If you think about it that way, then there's just no way slugger boys can compete in general. With the survivability, with Overwatch, with the Furious Charge changes, slugger boys just aren't as good. Not to say that they're bad, but I think they definitely got taken down a notch, even where they were before. Overall, so I would definitely consider shooters as to be amazing. In fact, there are going to be a lot of people just simply don't want to charge shooter boys, especially if you take rockets, which I always do. I always take rockets in my shooter boys units. I almost always take rockets in my slugger boy units. This is that's the way I play, because I like to shoot. So there's not going to be a whole lot of people that's going to look forward to assaulting shooter boys. For slugger boys, 25 pistol shots isn't the same as 50 shooter shots. I mean, you're getting twice as many shots, plus the rockets if you take them, or the big shooters if you take them. It's going to be just like assaulting looters. No one's going to really want to assault you, except for just some even 5 Terminators, 10 Terminators. They're just going to be like taking so much, because everything you do, every single wound you take is that fewer dead boys. However, this is a huge but. At the end of the day, there are no retreat wounds. Fearless wounds are gone, which means Orc boys are going to be a tar pit unit more than they're going to be a damage dealing unit. Because you're just not going to go anywhere. Even against purifiers, they can only kill so many. I mean, there's just not that... The units out there just don't have that many attacks to munch through Orc boys. What'll really be fun is you ever get Scarabs on boys. That's a combat that's going to last 14 combat phases. Or, could last as many as 14 combat phases. That first turn charge with the Scarabs into Orc boys, neither one of those units is going anywhere for that entire game. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So Orc boys, where do they go? Let's try and wrap this up into a reasonable amount of time. Orc boys, we talked about all the changes to the Orcs, or how they affect the unit. Where does that put us overall? Overall, they're just a little bit lower in power than they were before. are not as killy as they once were. Because I don't know about you, but I always counted on my boys to just basically munch through whatever they touched. Especially with shooter boys, you could shoot, and then you assault, and you're still orcs. You still got all those attacks. You still got all those models. And now the charging just doesn't seem to be as exciting as it was. In fact, just the other day, I didn't charge a unit of Terminators. Not because I didn't want to, because I wanted to shoot them a second time if they charged me, which of course they didn't do. But I'd rather sit back and do the Overwatch, because I'm not going to gain a whole lot from charging. I'm not going to gain that initiative. I'm not going to, sometimes I'm not going to gain the strength or the extra attack. So it's just not worth charging sometimes, especially with Overwatch. I'd take 40 Overwatch shots over charging pretty much any time, especially if I get to, depending of course on the army, if you can get shot up a lot, that may not be, no, it's going to be situational. If you're going to be shot a lot, a couple of Manticores on you before you get charged, it may not be a good idea. But if you don't have to worry about that much shooting late in the game when things actually finally get into each other, you might not want to charge. Which seems very, very strange, even to me, even the way I play my orcs. Charging was always an option. It was always a good thing to do. I want to get in, I want to shoot, I want to thin you down with all my shooting, and then I'm going to charge in with, still 20 boys left over after a few turns of shooting, and I'm going to pummel you. But now it's like, why bother? I'll just shoot you some more, and shoot you some more. I'll back up, shoot you some more. I'll run up, shoot you. You come forward, I run back, shoot you. You come forward, I run back, I shoot you. You run forward, I shoot you. You charge me, I shoot you again. Shoot. Yeah, so that's really where we are with the orcs. I'm kind of disappointed. I'm kind of let down with 6th edition as far as the orc boys go. I mean, other things got a big boost. Orc boys kind of stayed flat, maybe just down a little bit. Because the loss of no retreat is huge, but it doesn't make them any more dangerous. It just makes them more annoying, more than anything else. So that's where we're at with Orc Boys. Please let me know your opinions below if you think the boys have gone up, gone down. So their loss of no retreat ruins are huge, but you're not really gaining any offensive capability. You're just gaining survivability in close combat. You've lost survivability in shooting. You've lost effectiveness in charging, and you've gained annoyance in close combat. So that's it for this edition talking about orcs. Please let me know your thoughts. Talk to you guys later.